tools are actually disabled in this mod pack. It did not take them long to reach the factory, however, but luckily for them, the server is on peaceful for the first 60 minutes, so they don't have to deal with any of the mobs guarding the factory quite yet. In contrast to the Rare Metals team who quickly grouped up at the factory, the Uranium team members were scattered pretty far and wide, mining in various different locations around the map, wherever they could find some ore. Several members even located a ravine pretty fast and set up a little shop there. It certainly didn't take very long for a couple of them to reach the abandoned laboratory and remove some of the mob spawners there before they could start spawning mobs. Oil team spawned in a desert which happened to contain a desert temple, which seems like it would be a good thing for them at first, but then this happened. While Oil Team was having fun blowing up the desert temple, a member of Uranium Team by the name of Tank 4 was sneaking over in that direction and eventually reached the desert temple after it was blown up. They would then attempt to claim their first victim, an unlucky Oil Team member who also was down in the pit, but they would log out before they could die. Luckily for Tank 4, just moments later they would have another chance at a victim. Another unsuspecting Oil Team member arrived at the scene and was not as lucky as the first one. It was a pretty good time for the members of Oil Team who weren't stuck in exploded desert temples though. They had started reaching the abandoned aircraft carrier and were busily looting it for any available stuff, which, mind you, there was a lot of. There were quite a few guns and ammunition crates to be had throughout the ship. It only took a little bit of looking. There were several of them scattered throughout the savannah, but most of them are making their way to the carrier, and so many people were getting achievements that it was basically a fireworks show on the aircraft carrier for a brief time. I say most of the Oil Team members were on the aircraft carrier because there was at least one of them who was really far away in the middle of the map exploring an abandoned structure next to spawn. Except for a couple of Steel Team members who were still in a big marshy area, most of them had left and were congregating in a village in the middle of a forest near their abandoned mining site. The village served as a good place to live, with lots of houses offering protection right away. I noticed a disturbing trend starting to take shape only after a couple minutes of the server being open, and that was tons of people dying to falling trees. In fact, I'm pretty sure that falling trees had the highest kill count of any single thing in the game aside from players killing other players. The problem was that early on, the server was pretty laggy, and people were dying to trees after they'd already disappeared, like you can see in this clip.
This is so scary. Okay. Let's go, Timber. What?
It was starting to get ridiculous how many people were dying to trees, so I decided to respawn anyone who died to a falling tree within the first 60 minutes of the event, which is why both of those guys are alive there. Anyone who died to falling trees after the 60 minutes was up though wouldn't get respawned because everyone's supposed to be in hardcore. Amid the falling tree chaos, Steel Team was doing pretty well. They were pretty organized, they had a nice base, they'd started digging a little farm out underneath one of the houses, and they were setting up shop inside the largest village house. But I don't think anyone was doing as well as Oil Team was because they had just discovered that there were a lot of steel blocks that made up the aircraft carrier that could be harvested and turned into all kinds of useful things. Except for this one guy on Oil Team, almost getting stuck in quicksand trying to get some flint. He's totally not going to be important. You're not going to want to remember the name Trigger. Definitely not. Oil Team's success would not last for a very long time though, as another member of Uranium Team, Yanni Diamond, was in the process of sneaking on board the aircraft carrier. They journeyed all the way from their base just to infiltrate and cause problems. Completely unbeknownst to the happy members of Oil Team, Yanni Diamond was sneaking through various little hallways in the ship, barely going unnoticed for several moments. They decided to grab some of the steel blocks just like Oil Team, but eventually made it to the bottom of the ship, and this is where things went bad for Oil Team as they discovered the intruder on their ship. Yanni Diamond successfully eliminated 2 members of Oil Team and even managed to escape the ship, mostly unharmed, despite taking heavy fire from people with sniper rifles on the deck. Even though they successfully had driven off Yanni Diamond, Oil Team's problems weren't over, because at that point, Peaceful was disabled, and mobs started to spawn. In this case, lots of military mobs from the various spawn points located around the aircraft carrier. They did fare relatively well, though, because they were pretty well armed, and they had managed to block off some of the spawn points on the deck. I believe only one of the actual Oil Team members died to a military mob. Most of Uranium Team was just busy chilling at a nearby village that they had located. Very few of them were at the laboratory, and pretty much all of Metal's team was at their factory. They were very coordinated and probably the least spread out of all the teams. Maybe if there had been more players at Uranium